Many say that we are headed towards a recession, and even worse, a Great Depression. Although we are seeing the signs, it's important to pay attention and watch, but also be proactive. Creative jobs like musicians, artists, dancers, and actors, basically any job in the music industry or arts, are hit the hardest. So we're going to talk about how the recession impacted music. And welcome to Beat of Her Drum. And guys, I'm really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, but I need your help. So please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You won't be sorry. I'm going to bring you great content. So let's get the beat going. A recession is a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy lasting more than a few months. It normally affects real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. A recession begins just after the economic reaches a peak of activity with a falling GDP, gross domestic product, and most recessions are brief and they have been rare in recent decades. Now, depression, on the other hand, it's an extreme fall in economic activity that lasts for years rather than just several quarters. But you know, we're already feeling the effects of a falling economy with high gas prices and food. And they say that history repeats itself. So we've got to take a look back at history so we can see how people survive. And we're going to look at the Great Depression. And more so, we're going to look at how musicians survived the Great Depression. The Great Depression, it was the worst economic downturn in history and lasted for approximately 43 months. In the United States, it was 1930, and in other countries, it started in 1929. And it took close to 1 decade to recover, and with 2 separate downturns within a 9-year period. Now, when that stock market crashed, jobs were lost. Millions lost their savings as banks collapsed. It was really hard times during this time, and families were evicted due to not being able to pay rent or their mortgages. And unemployed men weren't able to provide for their families, which caused other problems in the household. Now, on the music tip, record sales dropped significantly, and record companies that did survive, like RCA and Columbia, they became the foundation of today's major labels. And of course, there were many soup kitchens. There were many things designed to help and feed people, and people were displaced and didn't know where their next meals were coming from. But in 1935, Franklin Roosevelt came up with the WPA program, and this was created to give Americans jobs and was part of the FDR's New Deal. The idea was to put Americans to work by being creative and uplifting the spirit of the nation. The WPA had many branches. The F&P was the Federal Music Project, which was designed specifically for us musicians, and they hired different types of musicians like jazz musicians, teachers, composers, singers, orchestra players, and they paid blacks and whites equally, like this F&P mixed chorus out of Los Angeles. And although the program provided jobs for those in the music industry, the government still monitored what was deemed as inappropriate content, and only music that was defined as American was accepted. But live music flourished. Big bands and swing music was popular in the 1930s, and by 1943, over 250,000 concerts had been performed. I'm going to talk about real quickly the Great Recession of 2008. And as you would expect, they had high rent prices, food going up, gas going up, and that housing bubble burst. When the housing bubble hit the same time the feds raised rates, banks, hedge funds, investors found themselves with worthless investments. And what caused the recession? The collapse of the housing market, fueled by low interest rates, easy credit, insufficient regulation, toxic subprime mortgages. And when the financial crisis rippled beyond Wall Street, the classical music industry was affected the most. And this was because the type of music survived on donations from the wealthy and its audiences. So, of course, shows were canceled, concerts were canceled, and just like we just recently experience crunched or diminished payrolls. And what do people cut off first? Entertainment. People find themselves just staying at home when they're trying to save money. Now, although it was a slow and steady recovery, as the Great Recession's end time was the summer of 2009, but because it was slow and the depth of the recession was so deep, it took years to reduce the slack in labor markets. So basically, guys, we gotta prepare. Stock up on food and water. Pay your debt, pay down your credit cards, get an emergency fund, stock up on your supplies. We have to be prepared. And just be ready, because that stock market will go back up. And when it does, you can invest your money wisely and get in at a good price. And I know we need an actual plan to save the economy, but we can start working right now. Let's prepare.
Thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that subscribe, follow, and hit that like button. Bye.
And remember, don't miss a